And Esmira, since we're a small group, maybe people could just introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We'll begin in just a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's 5 o'clock, and I would like to be mindful of our time. Tonight, we have a wonderful guest and speaker, Deborah McElligott. I met Deborah as part of my, we both belong into the Holistic Nurses Association, and I participated in the chapter that she chairs. And Deborah is wonderful at leading mindfulness exercises. I've been a part of them, and I thought she would be a wonderful addition to our group, Mindfulness Affinity group, and can give us some tips and tricks on becoming mindful and taking care of ourselves as healthcare providers. So without further ado, Deborah, you can lead. I know we have only a few members currently. Some may also join, and this is being recorded for everyone to come back and enjoy and listen to later.
Okay, and I had asked when you were just off before, I had asked if people could just introduce themselves
Yes.
since we are a small group. And I see Sandy posted in the chat that she's on her phone, so she can't unmute right now. And she's a simulation educator from Winona State University in Minnesota.
Yes.
And Jennifer Granger Brown is on. And Jennifer, you're from Santa Barbara. So are all of you part of this simulation? What is it, a group or a program?
Yes, so this is part of a simulation society for healthcare, and a lot of people are simulationists, but they have different backgrounds. Some people are nurses, some are doctors, some are other healthcare professionals, such as physical therapists, speech therapists, and so this is a very varied group. But tonight, but most of the people have the background in simulation. I also advertise this on LinkedIn, so it's open for everyone, not just simulationists or healthcare professionals.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So since it's a small group, feel free to interrupt me if there's any particular questions that you have. So I'm a nurse practitioner. I work at Katz Institute for Women's Health, part of the Northwell Health System, where our mission is really improving the lives of women across their lifespan. And there's a number, it's sort of like a virtual institute. So there's a center at Glen Cove, there's a specialty care surgery center at Huntington, there's the Women's Hospital at North Shore. We have our Center for Wellness and Integrative Medicine. And then there's the Katz Women's Hospital at LIJ with many different clinical programs, as well as many partners. So tonight, I just wanted to talk a little bit about meditation and mindfulness. And I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir, but hopefully you'll get something out of this that you can help with your programs and the work that you do. there's a lot of research on mindfulness. So I'll just touch on a couple of studies. And then for me, I love talking about the differences between seated meditation and mindfulness and mindful movement, because that way it can appeal to so many different patients that I work with. So, everyone's looking to be calm. Everyone's looking to relax. There's so much buzz about mindfulness. And I love John Kabat-Zinn's approach. Mindfulness is being aware in the present moment without judgment. And then he adds, as if your life depends on it. So when I talk about this in the workplace, usually the response that I get is that, people can't sit. They can't do it. And then the minute we sit, we think we should just have an empty mind, be like on top of a mountain. And usually it's when all these thoughts come into mind, or we start getting itchy or hungry, or, and right away we jump to the conclusion that we're doing this wrong. And actually, that is being mindful. You're being mindful of the thoughts that are coming into the brain. And when we do that, that's okay. That's what really exercises the brain. As John Kabat-Zinn has a lot of nice podcasts that you can Google that I think explain it really well. But when we look at mindfulness, it's been around for thousands of years. This one article I was looking at said it originated in Buddhist philosophy, but we know Ayurveda is about 2,000 or 3,000 years older than the Buddhist philosophy. So I'm sure there's roots in Ayurveda, certainly coming from the yoga, roots in traditional Chinese medicine, and threads in just about every culture and religion around the world. Pretty much everybody recognizes the importance of some moments of quiet and calmness where you can connect to something greater than yourself. And then in the early 20th century, there were a number of secular practices that came about with mindfulness. Jung talked about guiding inner wisdom through symbolism, visualization, and dream work. And then Thich Nhat Hanh did all his work in the 50s and later, really renewing like Buddhism in Vietnam. And then when Herbert Benson coined the relaxation response, he really talked about the benefits of mantras and meditation. And then John Kabat-Zinn started bringing all his work in the late 70s to Massachusetts and really doing a number of research studies, developing his mindfulness-based stress reduction program and seeing the benefits that had. So I'm going to try and play this. You'll have to just let me know when it actually comes on. I'll have to skip this first. Sorry. Families. And let me just make sure. Now, can you see my screen yet?
Deb, no, I think you should switch your screen from.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing and then I'll share it again.
Okay, thank you.
Because it usually takes a while when you're trying to do it. Okay, so now can you see it?
It's your slide for now, not the YouTube.
Not the YouTube yet. Okay, let me stop one more time. Let's see if this one will work. How about now?
Still your slides.
My slide. Okay. Let's see. It appears all over.
If you put the link in the chat, maybe I can play it from my end.
Okay, and still my slide?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, I'll do that. I'll put the, let me just go back to my presentation. Okay, see if you can pull it up because it's a short little video, but I think it really gets the point across.
Yes, let me see if I can share. Share screen. Okay.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Can you hear?
Mindfulness
Do you hear it?
Yes, now I hear it. Yes.
Thank you.
is actually a way of connecting with your life. And it's something that doesn't involve a lot of energy. It involves kind of cultivating attention in a particular way. So the way I define it is it's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And then I like to add sometimes as if your life depended on it, because it does. Attention is the faculty that allows us to navigate our lives in one way or another, and to actually know what's happening or know that we don't know what's happening, and find ways to be in a wiser relationship to things that are going on in our lives than being at the mercy, say, of our own emotional reactions and crazy thoughts and fears and so forth. So it's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally, as if your life depended on it. So paying attention to what, you might ask? Well, it doesn't actually matter. It's the attending itself that's important, more important than what it is that you're paying attention to. But that said, if you start to pay attention to how much attention we pay to anything, you begin to notice that the mind is all over the place. It never sits still. It's got this idea and that opinion and this reaction, and we spend a huge amount of time planning and worrying about the future, and a huge amount of time reminiscing about the past and who did what to whom, or why it worked out this way, or why it didn't work out this way. And the present moment, which is the only time that we're ever alive in, the only time we could learn anything, express any kind of love or emotion, the only time we could be in our own body, the only time we can see or hear or smell or taste or touch or communicate, is now. And yet the present moment gets completely squeezed out by all of our preoccupation with the future and the past. When we start to pay attention to our own mind and our own body, it's like reclaiming your life. Mindfulness is not a technique, although there are many, many different ways to cultivate mindfulness. It's actually a way of being embodied, being in some sense in equilibrium with the comings and goings of the outer world, and even the comings and goings and the ups and downs of having a body, which of course has its wonders and is also at sometimes seriously problematic when we're dealing with health problems of one kind or another, or things that can happen to the body. And as long as we have this capacity for awareness, why not develop it? Much of the time, if you think about our educational system and how we grow up, we are trained more and more and more to get into thinking. And thinking is wonderful stuff, very powerful. Some of the greatest achievements of humanity come out of thought, and out of imagination and out of creativity. But the other piece of it that's equally as powerful as the capacity for thought is the capacity for awareness. But we get no training in awareness and attention, huge amount of training in thought. So a lot of the time when we get into bed at the end of a long day, we can't deal with our thoughts and we can't sleep. They just kind of perseverate over and over and over again, the same thoughts. We want to shut them out. The more you try to shut them out, the more they come in, and pretty soon you don't get to sleep, or you wind up with, basically chronic anxiety or some kind of condition or other. Depressive rumination can spiral you into depression, a little bit of sadness, and then that triggers this kind of perseverating constantly. What's wrong with me? Why don't people like me? Why didn't she look at me? Whatever it is, these are all thoughts. I'm no good. I'm too old. My life it's all downhill from here. All of those things, they're only thoughts, but most of the time we think of them as the truth. So what mindfulness does in a way is it embraces the actuality of the mind, the heart, the body, and our relationality with the outer world, and gives us new degrees of freedom to navigate the ups and the downs and the ins and outs of our relationships with life, with other people, with our own aspirations and our own fears, and also, and most fundamentally, with our own body. Now, most of us don't want to go anywhere near our own body, except under very specialized circumstances at particular times. It seems like, wow, it's wonderful to have these bodily experiences. But a lot of the time, we're just pretty much up here. thinking, and really believing so many of these thoughts as the truth that we wind up in a very narrow band of what's actually possible for us in terms of our human experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So I love that presentation because I just think it's so great to hear it from him, who's been such a leader in this for, I mean, over what, like 30 years. So when we talk about, he talked about mindfulness, and it's not like you don't just be mindful. There's many ways to do it. There's many forms of mindfulness, and meditation is one of those forms to cultivate it. But so can other contemplative practices. So I try to get the point across that if you can't sit and meditate, there's still many other ways that you can develop a sense of mindfulness. Now, some people do it through playing music, through prayer, through Tai Chi or yoga, fishing, washing dishes, painting, knitting, crocheting, imagery, meditation. These are all types of contemplative practices, and mindfulness being like a key component sort of in everything. So meditation has gotten, the buzzword as the way to be mindful, and certainly any type of contemplative practices can be really powerful. And we think of meditation where you want to be seated in a quiet location, usually in a comfortable posture so the energy can flow freely in the body. It often involves this open attitude of letting go and being non-judgmental. But that being said, we know we've had great success using meditation in the hospital, in 4-bedded rooms, in noisy environments. Once you train yourself and develop a conditioned response, you can pretty much do it anywhere, on the train, on the plane, anywhere that you choose to. And these are older statistics. I haven't seen any newer ones lately, but from 2012 to 2017, there was a huge increase in the amount of people doing meditation. And we know since COVID, things have really skyrocketed. And most people seek meditation, mindfulness, some of these contemplative practice to help induce the relaxation response, because we know that makes just about everything better. It decreases blood pressure, symptoms of anxiety, helps with depression, helps with irritable bowel and a lot of the inflammatory diseases. And it really supports a healthy body, body, mind, and spirit. So many different types of meditations. You can concentrate on a word, a thought, sensation, or an image. For instance, the transcendental meditation, the breath focus meditation, repetition of a prayer or a mantra. There's the mindfulness where we may just sit and be. There's movement-based meditation, such as Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Sufi dancing. There's the Buddhist metta meditation, or the Tonglen, where we're focused on loving kindness. And then there's also the work that comes from HeartMath, where we're talking about cultivating gratitude and compassion and love. And we know that that has a huge effect on the heart-brain connection and the body as a whole. And then there's emptying types of meditations that are centering, or, sitting and being and noticing, allowing inner wisdom to come through. So, some of these meditations that have such great research are really due to the practice that people put into them. When you're learning transcendental meditation, people practice twice a day for 20 minutes at a time. When you're doing the mindfulness-based stress reduction, people practice daily for like 45 minutes a day. So when you're devoting that amount of time to some type of meditation, we can see some really powerful results. People reach a state of inner calm and coherence. There's over 600 studies showing how it can reduce stress and anxiety. And when that's reduced, then we can enhance our focus and our competency. We have more energy, we slow aging and improve sleep. So many great benefits. As he mentioned, John Kabat-Zinn, mindful meditation, you don't need any special skill. You just set an alarm, a clock for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and you just sit and be, and you notice, and you become aware of sensations without judging them. Very often people focus on the breath because that helps to ground them a little. But you allow thoughts and sounds to pass without actually thinking about it. And again, all the physical benefits mostly related to inducing the relaxation response. So when you think about what it's like when we're relaxed, we can concentrate better. We stop running on autopilot. We actually, are in the present moment and recognize what we're doing and where we're going next. That's when we can be creative. How creative can you be when you're super stressed? Usually not at all. You can help cope with the stress of performance with some of these mindful practices, and be stable in the middle of chaos. Not to say that it's going to last forever, but very often if we get 1 or 2 minutes of calm as we're entering a crisis, that can help us respond instead of react. And that can make all the difference in the team that we're working with, in whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. So as I mentioned, there's tons of research out there. I just highlighted a couple, mostly working with healthcare workers, because that's the field that I work in. I work with a lot of patients and also a lot of employees. And there's this cumulative stress. It's like a wide range of work and non-work stresses. So that's not to say that it's everybody's job, but often it's the job, the home, the extended families, the communities, the national events that are going on. There can be stress no matter where you turn. And this may not happen. You may not get stressed the minute you're going through an event. It may sort of take a while to percolate and be a type of cumulative stress that then manifests a week or a month later. And people are like, well, I don't know what's going on, not realizing the subtle signs that they ignored all along. So in 2018, before COVID, there was a nice systematic review of the impact of mindfulness on the well-being of healthcare professionals. And the conclusion is that it's a tool that appears to improve the well-being of healthcare professionals in essential areas of practice. They found that mindfulness was associated with positive outcomes, mostly related to, avoiding burnout. In 2019, right before COVID, they looked to see if mindfulness could help address the work-related burnout. That's the time right before COVID where there was a huge focus on burnout. And mindfulness showed that the study showed that mindfulness decreased 2 subscales, the depersonalization and the emotional exhaustion on the burnout scale. And when you think about that for a minute, when you're in the present moment, you can so much more easily connect with others, and you can relate to others, and not on that, high emotional level, but on a deep personal level, where we can have productive conversations and really enhance our relationships. They found that especially, the awareness, the non-judgment, and the non-reactivity showed significant increases. And think about what your life would be like if the people you work with were less reactive, if the people you live with were less reactive. So the mindfulness interventions improve burnout and overall mindfulness for healthcare professionals. And they saw this effect not just immediately after practices, but they saw this with some long-term follow-through. So that was really important. And then in 2021, they were looking at mindfulness in healthcare professional and medical education. And again, same thing, the effects that it has on stress, burnout, depression, well-being, and empathy among doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers. So that's often the goal of many institutions and providers is, how do we have an empathetic workforce? How do we have the patient-centered care and really focus on the needs of the patient? So all positive results. Of course, everybody feels we need additional studies. And I just wanted to point this out because this is old. This is from 2014, but Mary Jo Kreitzer and colleagues came up with a tiered approach to pain management. And we see these mind-body interventions, relaxation, music, distraction, prayer, simple meditation, touch listening, are all tier 1. So this is where we should first start. When we have an ache, when we have a pain, when we feel stressed, use some of these mind-body techniques that can really sort of stop the gate, the floodgate of the perception of pain, and help people deal with it. And then if you go back to nursing theories from Florence Nightingale, where she talked about, nursing's role is to put the patient in the best condition for nature to act upon him. If you looked at Martha Rogers and all her energy theories and her energy systems, the open systems, they're pan-dimensional. And then if you looked at Jean Watson's work and the curative factors from this humanistic perspective, we realize that there's tons of theoretical support for self-care, for us being an instrument to help patients heal, but not able to do that when we're super stressed and we're not healthy. So how does this meditation and mindfulness, how does it really work? I mean, and why do we even need to study it when these practices have been around for over 3,000 years? I think some of the studies are really valuable, especially when we're working with people who don't believe this, and they don't believe that, you can calm yourself down. They don't believe that you can change the way you think or the way you act. But studies with functional MRIs, and looking at neural networks and the whole area of neuroplasticity shows that neural networks are activated during meditation, and they cause both functional and structural changes. So if you do some functional MRIs of somebody's brain, and then they start a strong meditative practice and they do it every day for a month, after that time, you're going to actually see physical changes in the brain. And the thing that I found the most interesting was that they saw changes in both the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. Years ago, when I first learned meditation and guided imagery, you were always looking at the right brain thinkers versus the left brain thinkers, and the right brain more creative and the left brain more analytical. And it showed in these studies that, meditative practices, which most all include a type of mindfulness, affect the brain in so many different areas. So I think that's a really powerful study. And the first thing that we tell people to do, or we suggest that they do, the easiest thing is to do this self-assessment. Notice when you're starting to get stressed. Notice when those thoughts are coming. I love the way he circles his hand. You're thinking, thinking, thinking. Notice when you're in that mode, and just stop for a second and take a breath. And again, notice it and reframe. Do I really need to have all these thoughts flooding through my brain right now? And then you decide, yes, I'm going to keep doing this, or no, I can, nip it in the bud right now, journal a little, get some thoughts out, and deal with this later on. So I think when we talk about techniques like the stop technique and self-assessment, we give people control, so that even if they need to get stressed and they can't stop thinking, at some point it becomes a bit of a choice of when and how they want to do it. And it does it because the breath is so powerful. We know if we start to run, you're going to breathe faster. And we know if we start to think and work ourselves up, we're going to breathe faster. So just as the changes in the body and the mind affect the breath, when we change the breath, it affects both the body and the mind. And that sounds sort of simplistic, it affects the body, it affects the mind. Well, how? Well, we know the huge effect between the breath and the autonomic nervous system. We know the effect of the sympathetic nervous system on stress, how the parasympathetic works to help us calm down. Tons of studies being done on vagal tone and vagal stimulation now. But realizing that, how fast can we get stressed? I mean, most people can get stressed in like 2 seconds. And it can be sitting at your desk, seeing an email or a text that just flew across the screen, or it can be in a car in the second that somebody cuts you off. So we know in a very quick way, we can start this whole chain of events that have a whole systematic response just on our thoughts. So how do we look at ways that we can interrupt it before it ends in effects of all hormones being released throughout the whole body and this real cellular impact, and eventually weakening the whole immune system? So how do we interrupt this whole path and stop that train of thought? And that's usually where we go back to, self-assessment. Where do you first start to feel stressed? How does it manifest in you? What's the first symptom that you get? Is it like a little bit of tightness in the shoulders? Is it a bit of a headache or a pit in the stomach or a palpitation? But just think for a second, and looking at these 4 quadrants, what's the first inkling that your stress response is starting to kick in? So the goal is for us to recognize that so we can then intervene. So how does this translate into our practice? Certainly the goal would be, everybody have a great meditative practice, be mindful for 15 to 20 minutes, just sit and be. In one of the courses I took, the Transcendental Meditation, I love the way they describe the levels of meditation. And for me, it was a really nice way to induce meditation. John Kabat-Zinn will say, sit and be and just notice. So initially, when you're sitting for the first couple of minutes anyhow, all these thoughts keep coming into my mind. And they call this like the sunlight zone. That's where you're just observing your thoughts. And if you do nothing more than that, that's still powerful, because each time you observe a thought and you let it go, you're changing neural pathways. Then when you go a little bit deeper and you have a little more practice, you start to observe the silence. And you may be sitting and then just like start to think, has it been 1 minute or has it been 10 minutes? How long have I been sitting here? But you're noticing that you're not getting a whole bunch of thoughts. And then when you get to they call the midnight zone, that's when you really lose yourself. You're lost in the meditation and often may get some insight or awarenesses. So I love to think of it this way, because there are times when you notice yourself going deeper. And for me, that was just pretty powerful. So for people that can't meditate, and I work with a lot of students, I work with some health professional students at the School of Medicine. And many people just aren't used to sitting and being because they've been doing forever. So this is one simple meditation that we invite people to do. It's called a finger hold meditation. It comes from the work of Jinsen Jitsu, where you're holding the thumb on one hand with all your fingers, and then you take 3 breaths on each finger on one hand and 3 breaths on each finger on the other hand. And we'll practice this as a group in just a bit. For people that can't sit but still want to meditate, there's the walking labyrinths. This is one that one of our colleagues bought, and they put it in a room in their hospital when they want to do the labyrinth walk. So you start walking and you just follow the path along that. Some places they have it outdoors, but ancient practices of just sitting and being. So this one actually came from Mather Hospital. That's part of our health system. And then there's Tai Chi Easy. So Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga are all different forms of mindful movement. Specifically the Tai Chi with the 26 or 42 or 100 moves is beautiful. It's often called, a dance, but it does take a bit of practice to learn. And most of the people that I work with aren't that disciplined. So I was excited when Tai Chi Easy came along. And it's a way of doing Tai Chi that makes it simple, fun, and beneficial right away. And it involves 5 moves of Tai Chi. Again, focus on breath awareness, focus on meditation, and then including some self-massage and some tapping. And it's rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. It comes from the Healer Within Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization whose goal is to really disseminate this worldwide so that people can obtain the benefits from Tai Chi and Qigong without the structured discipline that has been part of it for thousands of years. So the motto is go slow and easy, focus on the breath, and slow, careful movements can strengthen the body's healing forces. They want to keep learners inspired. Qigong is life energy, thousands of years old. Tai Chi is often called the source. It's one of the ways to gather the energy. And I love this. Doing it wrong is better than not doing it at all. So while it's wonderful to have the real practice of Tai Chi, where there's the great attention to detail, this is something that another whole group of people without that attention to detail can really benefit from. And it's based in traditional Chinese medicine, the belief that energy flows up and down the acupuncture channels, that the body's designed to heal itself. When energy gets blocked in the channels, that's when we have dis-ease and we have energy blocked, but we can gain more energy through the breath, through the posture, and through all the acupuncture points on the body. So as we start the practice, we adjust our body posture, we focus on our breath, and we clear our mind to be present when we're doing it. And these, again, are just some of the techniques that we use. I also just want to highlight before we get into some practice that on our website, we have, if you go to Northwell Swim, this part here, northwellswim.com, that's our website. And there's free links to guided imagery for stress, one for healing through cancer, and one for preparing for surgery. So even though I'm not talking about guided imagery, it's very closely linked to meditation. It's called the lazy man's meditation because all people have to do is sit and just listen to the scripts that you're streaming. So with all of this, my goal is really going to be, self-assess, identify your goals and develop an action plan. What's one way that you can incorporate some of this mindfulness or meditation into your daily practice? How can you set aside a small time each day to practice, and pull in family and friends for support, and then celebrate and share your success? So I love this saying, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So again, as you're planning everything in your life, see where you can plan some time for your self-care and experience some of the simple forms of meditation and mindfulness. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to put my camera on, and I'd like to just, if everybody wants to stand up, and we'll do like a little bit of movement, and we'll do some mindful movement so you can just see what you think that practice is like. And it may be something that you want to use with your patients or your friends. So before I start, does anybody have any questions? Everyone's okay?
Yes, thank you. That was very insightful. I appreciate it. And
okay, so let's just stand up.
If anybody's comfortable coming on camera, if not, we can just follow Deb along with our camera. So
yeah, it's up to you whether you want to come on camera or not. As you can see, I'm not dressed very nice. My aim was to be comfortable. So we're going to stand right here with our feet hips width apart, and the knees are slightly bent. So this is a soft position. The shoulders come up and around, so the arms are resting at the side. And this is called our Wuchi position. The head is centered above the shoulders. And you can take your hand and just place it above your head and just elongate the spine. So reach up just a little, then put the hands down. And now let the palms face back. As we inhale, let the arms rise. And as you exhale, let them just float down. So we're just inhaling and exhaling. And you're mindful of any movements, any restrictions that you may have. And you're just doing this at your own pace, coordinating the inhale and the exhale. And usually we would do each move 9 times, but for tonight's purposes, we're just gonna shorten it a little. Then take your palms and let them face forward. So now we're gathering energy, and then let it come down and flow over you. So we're inhaling and we're exhaling. And one more time, inhaling and exhaling. So I'm going to mirror you. So now shift your weight to your right leg. Step out with your left. Place hands on a table. Just lean forward. And as you lean back, lift up the front toes. So we exhale forward and inhale back. And this is called calming the waters. So just imagine that you're calming all this energy around you. Don't forget to breathe. Exhale and inhale. Now inhale the foot back. Hands rest on the table. Take 2 breaths. As we breathe, try and focus on the abdominal breathing if that's comfortable. Shift your weight to your left leg. Step out with your right. Exhale forward. Inhale back. Lift the toes. So we're inhaling and exhaling. Inhale back. Now imagine that you're holding a big fluffy cloud and you're going to follow your elbow. So I'm going to lean towards the window as I turn, let that arm float away, and the next arm comes up. So this is called cloud hands. So you're watching your hand, imagining it's a beautiful fluffy cloud floating across the sky. Let it float away as the next cloud comes up. Inhale, look at your palm, turn to your right, let it float away. Exhale as your left hand comes up and you turn to the left. So the feet are rooted, we're just turning from the waist. Inhaling and exhaling. And then we bring our arms to cross hands. Now I'm going to shift my weight to my right foot, open up my arms, drop my elbows, and shift my weight to the left. So I'm inhaling and exhaling. So this is called cutting a path to clarity. The backhand is the past, all the things you can't forget or forgive. The front hand is the future, everything you're worried about. And you're coming into the present moment like 2 sailboats, just sailing past each other. So again, bringing that energy right to the here and now, shifting the weight and turning. So these are some of the Tai Chi practices that we're doing as we're standing. This is a standard form of the Tai Chi. We could also do it in a walking motion. This is called gathering yin and gathering the yang energy. Inhaling, gathering the energy, bringing it up, and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. And one more time. And then you close your practice and bring your feet together and bow. So those are forms of mindful movement for relaxation. Now, some of the same moves that we've done can be used to invigorate and move the energy around. So back to your Wu Chi position with the feet about hips width apart, knees slightly bent. We're going to raise the arms up. And now we're going to forcefully exhale. So we're generating heat, we're generating energy, we're letting go of whatever's stressing us. And then we stand still. And you notice the energy moving around. So we can gather the energy from the breath. We can gather the energy from the movement. We can use these moves to help us relax, and many other Tai Chi moves that we can use, again, to gather energy and to let go. So the last thing I just wanted to show you was that finger hold meditation, which I find like really easy and great for people that can't sit and be, because you're mindful of the touch, you're mindful of the breath, but then you're counting. So I invite you to hold your thumb and hold it so lightly that you can almost feel the pulse in it. And then take 3 breaths. And just notice the inhale, the pause, and the exhale. And then move on to the next finger and notice the temperature of that finger. Notice the inhale and the exhale. And count 3 breaths while you're holding that finger. And then continue with each finger on one hand and each finger on the other hand. And if distracting thoughts come to mind, just acknowledge them without judgment. Let them go and bring your awareness back to the touch of the finger, to the breath, and to counting. So you could take a deeper inhale and a sigh as you exhale. And place your hands back in a comfortable position. And if your eyes were closed, you can open them up. And again, just notice how you feel. So thank you, everybody. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate it. Please feel free to ask Deb any questions. As I told you, she's amazing at this. So I know we all feel extremely relaxed and ready to take a little nap now.
Well, you know, this is a great thing to do when you can't sleep at night, because it's hard. It's, you know, like the goal is to be mindful and relaxed as you go to sleep, but it's hard to stop the thoughts. But it's hard to think when you're feeling and you're sensing the breath and you're counting. So for a lot of people, it's like counting sheep, only better, because you're bringing that tactile sense into it.
I was never aware of this exercise, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no, I love it. And the interesting thing is that if you do this for 21 days, 5 minutes a day, at the end of 21 days, it becomes a conditioned response. So the simple act of just holding the thumb when you first start to get stressed takes it down a notch. Just like if you do Tai Chi every day for 5, 10, 15 minutes, the simple act of standing in Wu Chi, and as you first raise your hands, you start to feel the energy. Your body knows, okay, now I'm relaxing. So our goal is, how can we identify practices that fit into our lifestyle that can become a conditioned response that we can call on whenever we need them.
Yeah. And I have to say, Tai Chi movements are a little challenging. I mean, for me, and I exercise, you know, consistently. Please go ahead. Who was speaking? I apologize.
Deb, this is Carol. I really appreciated the movements because I love the imagery that you also put in it with the cloud and picking up the energy and all those different things. That was lovely. And I also like the hand, because you can do that on a plane when you're riding a taxi. You can do it when you're in a classroom or in a faculty meeting. You could do those things and it would be centering in essence of where you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reason I show it. You know, when I first learned this, I didn't think anything of it. I showed it to a couple of patients, and one woman in particular was having panic attacks at work. And if she had one more panic attack, she was going to lose her job. And she called me up like a month later. She's like, "You saved my job." And I didn't even know who she was. And she said, you know, ever since she came in, she was doing that exercise every day. And then she started to get a panic attack at work. She said her chest was palpitating. She was getting a hot flash. You know, she felt like she was sweating. She held her finger and it calmed down. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty good. But that's because that became her conditioned response. You know, so it can be really powerful. And this imagery isn't my imagery. You know, Tai Chi is rooted in nature, in the 26 forms. You know, there's the swan move, and there's the cloud hands, and these other particular Qigong movements. That's the way it was taught to me. And I love cutting the path to cloudy. Actually, when you do it we walk backwards when we do it. But no, and I love calming the water. So I'm a big imagery person. So I think that's why it resonates so much with me. And plus, it's not a hard lift.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this for us this evening.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions for Deb?
I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. It was really helpful and informative and something I could see myself trying with some of my different work groups.
Yeah, and if you're interested in the Tai Chi Easy, it comes from the Healer Within Foundation. And I should have made the disclaimer, I'm not a Tai Chi Qigong master. I'm a nurse practitioner that took the Tai Chi Easy Practice Leader Program, which is a 3-day program. I took it 3 times before I started leading classes, but you only have to take it once. But it's something that's easily learned, that resonated with me, but you can use sitting, standing, or walking with many different populations. And not that I get anything from referring you to them, but just that I find it's a nice foundation, and I think they're doing great work. And I think expanding this can be beneficial for so many people.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank
Do
you.
you use this in your nurse practitioner practice? I mean, do you give
I
tips?
do. See, I'm a holistic nurse practitioner.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And prior to COVID, I was doing a lot of individual health and wellness coaching. I'm also an integrative nurse health and wellness coach. And then since COVID, I started doing a lot of virtual and educational programs. So what I'll do is, when the library really bugs me, I'll do like an 8-week series once a week for the local library. Or I try to do some things online. The Tai Chi hasn't really picked up online that much, except for maybe like 3 people that would come every week. But I do a lot of education for staff and for different service lines and patient groups, because this is so great for anyone stressed, for cardiac, for women post-mastectomy. It's simple movements, yet you're moving and you're breathing. And for staff who don't know how to relax and don't really see the benefit of it till they actually start to do it.
Sandy said, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I have enjoyed it immensely. And Julie said, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to sharing play with my team. So yes, we have recorded this presentation tonight, and I will send the link via email to everyone. Deb, I was wondering if you can bring back your original your cover slide with your information, and
Sure.
so people can see your name, because we had some people join us a little bit later. And I can take a little screenshot and share on LinkedIn.
Yeah, this is probably the easiest. That's my email. This is our website. So once you go on there, if you click on classes and services, you can scroll down to the guided imagery and get the free links. Yeah, and any questions that you have, feel free to email me.
Thank you. Deb, go back to your first slide with your name. I just want to take a screenshot to share with everybody.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And these were very helpful, colorful, and
I love the 3 levels of meditation too, with the like diving deeper into the ocean. That was neat.
Yeah, I don't even know who owns that slide. I found that slide on like Google, but when I learned the transcendental meditation, that was the one thing I really took away. She started it saying, okay, just notice, as if you're floating on top of the water. And then it was, thank God I like the water. Then it was like, go a little bit deeper. And then it was, you're lying on the ocean floor. I was thinking I'm like the Little Mermaid or something.
Yeah.
So for me, that really resonated.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we have a few more minutes. If you have any questions, any suggestions, I'm planning out for our next meeting to be in September. I am looking for a speaker currently. So if you have a colleague who is into mindfulness and implemented something in their simulation lab, or not just the simulation lab, but maybe in the workplace, that's helpful for everybody and related to self-care, please refer them to me. I am on LinkedIn. I don't know if everybody's connected with me. I'll post my LinkedIn the link to my LinkedIn account as well, in case you want to connect. Deb mentioned to me that she's not so active on LinkedIn, so I didn't ask her to share it with us. Any suggestions, questions, recommendations at this point? Okay, well, it's always a pleasure to see everybody. I'll see you soon in September. Enjoy your summer. And thank you so much again, Deb, for coming.
Okay, nice to meet everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.